Once again, it's that time of the year where we have the Steam Next Fest, which is about a week-long celebration showcasing a lot of upcoming games on Steam, and really it's fantastic. It gives these games a spotlight that they deserve to showcase their game. A lot of games have playable demos during this time, and it allows the developers to actually sell the game to us with actual gameplay instead of just trailers. And the Steam Next Fest usually happens a few times every year, sometimes showcasing more than one genre, and sometimes just focusing on one genre entirely. And from February 5th to February 12th, Steam had hundreds of demos available to play, all for these great upcoming games. I try to dive in and play as many demos as possible, usually sticking towards roguelites and Metroidvanias, as those are my favorite genres, really, but I tried to spice it up with a little bit of variety here and there, of course. And what I want to do is showcase every single demo that I got to play during this Steam Next Fest. It was only about 12 to 15 demos or so, but I want to highlight every single game I played and talk about the good, or the bad, or even the ugly. I'm going to be brutally honest as always, but you know, if any of these games interest you, all their links will be in the description, so let's talk about some games. The first demo I played was one of my most anticipated games, and it's Pepper Grinder. This game reminded me of Shovel Knight Dig when I first saw it with the digging up treasure aspect of the game, and all the gameplay I've seen makes it seem like a pretty fast-paced game with some small puzzles, and the demo delivered exactly that. You only get to play 3 levels total, but it showcases the combat and collectibles well. Your combat is all around your drill, and you need to just attack enemies head on or dig around them. The game also reminded me of Super Mario World in a few areas, mostly with collectible coins in each level that are usually hidden, and the overworld map to an extent. But the gameplay alone stands out on its own. The coins you collect in levels allow you to buy sticker pages, and then your main currency allows you to buy health, which isn't permanent, and stickers. I assume the stickers are just collectibles. But really, I was not disappointed at all with Pepper Grinder, and after playing this demo, I just want to see more, and I'm super excited for the release date, which should be sometime in 2024. But this next demo I played was a game called Creature Keeper, which is a game I saw in one of the showcases last year during the Summer Games Fest, and I was initially intrigued with its cute graphics and this creature style catching game. I'm not the biggest in creature catching games, but I'm always open to give them a shot. Sometimes. The demo was a combat-only demo that lasted about 15 minutes, but still showcases a good amount that the game offered. You can equip up to 3 weapons and befriend creatures you fight in the world with pies. A writer for the game was actually in my Twitch chat while playing and said that every creature likes different foods, so there's a lot of experimentation which will happen when the game fully launches. In the demo, I did also get to meet one other character named Gruff, who seems to be in charge of side quests in the game. The different amount of creatures in the game seems good, as the one area I was in had a good handful of variety, and once you actually befriended the creatures, they just follow you around and attack enemies for you. And they can level up. Now, if you're a fan of creature catching games like this, I would suggest keeping your eye on this one, as it looks like it has a lot of variety and it goes pretty in depth with everything. The combat, the music's great as well, but the combat goes in depth, a lot of different creatures to befriend. Seems like a pretty good game overall. Now, this next game could actually be the best game that I played during this showcase, and it's Crypt Custodian. This game was incredible with how much it showcases in an hour-long demo. The premise is super simple, as you play as a cat who gets thrown into purgatory, which they call outside the palace, and you get assigned the job janitor, basically. But this is a Metroidvania game, not a cleaning one. You travel through the afterlife, hanging out with ghosts and facing a lot of enemies. In the 1-hour demo, the combat showcases were super good and simple. You have a roll mechanic, and you attack enemies with a broom. The game had little challenge rooms where you need to clear out every enemy before advancing, good puzzles early on, a huge map to showcase what more is to come, good unlocks in your hub world, a simple fast travel system with another simple system of equipment upgrades and unlocking skill points, and of course, one great boss battle at the end of the demo. Honestly, I think this little Metroidvania has a lot of potential to be the indie game of the year for me. Last year, Blasphemous 2 was probably my top indie game of the year at the end of the year, and that was another great Metroidvania. But if you like Metroidvania games, good platforming, cute cats, I would highly suggest this game. It has a little Souls element to it here and there, but doesn't seem too challenging, and I think this could be the best game that we've played from this showcase, and we're only 3 games in. Next is another Metroidvania game called Emberbane, and after I watched the initial trailer for the game, I thought it looked fantastic. You have different abilities in combat that seem inspired from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and fun enemies to fight. But what I got from this game was a little lackluster, but it has a lot of potential if tweaked correctly. The platforming as a whole wasn't horrible, but not too overly complicated. The music was non-existent, it felt like, until you got to the boss fight. Really, the audio design as a whole didn't immerse me into the game like I hoped it would, and most importantly, the combat that looked super good was actually super bland. The unlocks you got were okay, and the pacing of them was good, but combat as a whole was just not enjoyable after 20 minutes for me. Your range of attack was very short, and once you did get some range, it didn't really do much damage and was easily spammable, and sometimes enemies just stood there and took it. Really, I don't think this game is bad. bad, but it needs some more work on audio and combat mostly, as those are some of the most important parts of a Metroidvania. Hell, of any good game, really. But I'll have to keep my eye on it, and Emberbane, I hope those changes come and the game comes out great. I'll probably try it regardless. But next, we have a game that I saw a lot of people playing, and it reminded me of a combination of Warm Snow and Hades, and it was a game called Realm of Ink. You play as the swordsman Red trying to break free from a book, I think, while trying to fight a fox demon. Really, I picked this game up because the combat looked a lot like Hades, and it felt a lot like Hades, except less fluent, really. You have your starting weapon, which has different attacks and 2 different inks you can equip that you can use with your triggers or bumpers, which are also related to your companion, who also just attacks enemies for you. Really, if you love Hades or enjoy this style of combat, you should get it. The upgrade system is somewhat similar to Hades, where you do have meta progression to buff everything, but inside of a run you have currencies to shop with, and different buffs that you can get from door choices. Visually, I think this game looks great as well, and I'll say it runs pretty good and could potentially be a top indie game of the year. Next, we have a game called Rollin Rascal, which I was a little hesitant to play because it looked a lot like Sonic the Hedgehog, and I know what you're thinking, but as of making this, I recently put down Sonic Adventure 2 after picking it up for the first time, because that was actually one of the worst games that I ever played, which made me a little scared for this game. It makes sense now. And after playing Rollin Rascal, I'll say it's just like a Sonic game. The movement, the mechanics, the environments, they're all heavily inspired by Sonic, and it felt pretty good moving all around. A little janky as it's a very early demo, but it felt good regardless. The demo only has 1 level outside the tutorial, which took me about 10 minutes to beat, but did have time trials as an option. You just play as this bald, fast dude, and you run fast and you turn into a ball. You have a dash attack and a double jump. If you're a Sonic fan for some reason, this is one you'll want to check out. It already has a very successful Kickstarter you can contribute to if you want, and yeah, it felt like a Sonic game. Not much more to say. It wasn't horrible. Next, we have everybody's favorite genre with Horde Survivors. You know, the genre that overfills every single email I get, but this one is called Pesticide Not Required, and it had a lot more than I expected. You play as a frog initially, and your goal is to survive 15 days on the farm. During each day, enemies spawn in and you kill them, but the way you earn XP is by farming and fishing. You earn money from mining rocks that spawn nearby and killing enemies, but XP gaining is from farming crops that you plant. After each day, you can buy seeds for vegetables, which all take a different amount of time to harvest, and buy weapon seeds that turn into weapons once harvested, and they can be upgraded multiple times by buying more seeds. Harvesting seeds is simple as it plants them automatically, but you need to worry about watering them as you run out of water fast. But there's still more to the game, as you can buy animal companions that help on the farm with watering, harvesting, planting, and upgrades for your character with speed, damage, you know, the usual thing. Towards the end of a run, you can most likely just idle if you get a busted run, but the beginning of a run is very unique and I liked it. The game also seems to have a lot of variety of different characters and different starting stats and weapons, and even meta progression and 4 different seasons to play on. Now, I have a lot of different Horde Survivor games that I want to play, like God of Weapons, Army of Ruin, Orc Survivor, really the list goes on, but Pesticide Not Required is definitely one that I'm going to be keeping my eye on and probably going to pick up on day 1. If you're a Horde Survivor fan, I'm sure you will like this game as well. Now after Horde Survivor, we have another Metroidvania game where you play as a vaccine inside of a dog, and it's called Biogun. This was a very good looking game to me with the platforming. Your goal is to save the dog from a new pandemic that only affects canines. It's a Metroidvania, so you find areas you can't travel from and get upgrades for steady game progression. Where Biogun stands out to me is the weapon system, and mainly the main weapon and ammo. Your main weapon is used with a control stick, so it's a platformer with twin stick shooting, and your secondary stronger weapon is used on a trigger but takes energy to use. The energy is in the top left corner, which is a syringe, and you gain that by shooting enemies. It also refills your health like Hollow Knight. That concept right there makes it stand out a little for me. And the combat was generally okay, I'll say. The couple boss fights I did in the demo were good. You also have a dash and a jetpack pretty early on. Those are all the abilities I've discovered so far. The biggest negative for me in this game was the occasional frame drops, really. I assume it wasn't my PC since every other demo I've played runs perfectly fine, but very consistently frames would drop and slow the game down. It's another Metroidvania, so if you're really into those, I'd just keeping an eye on it. It doesn't feel as fluid as others, but it can still be a fun time, and the demo is quite long as I only had an hour to play it due to time constraints, and I still didn't beat it. Next, I picked up another Horde Survivor because it looked pretty good to me, and this one you play as a paintbrush going through multiple levels and enemies called Antipaint. Really, it's like any Horde Survivor. You fight multiple enemies, you get upgrades and all of that, but look at the bosses. They're famous paintings. that's not that bad. But there's still more to it, I promise. Throughout the run, you have shops to buy upgrades and restore health, as health seems to be super hard to come by, which can be a negative with how big hitboxes can be. And with that said, with the giant hitboxes, I will say the different types of runs this game has doesn't really feel as good, as melee weapons do not feel good at all. In the demo, I played with a short range brush and a melee weapon brush, and the melee weapon just sucked, I'll just say that. My favorite part of this game is after you die, it shows you the paintings that you made, and the music is also quite funky. But my actual favorite cosmetic part of this game is the color palette section. It'll change the color of the paint and enemies. It's just a cosmetic, but it's nice. There didn't seem to be any meta progression like Pesticide Not Required, like damage buffs or permanent HP, but it does have different weapons and different paintbrushes you can play as. It's a good funky time for a Horde survivor, and if you like them, I'd suggest trying it out. This next game reminded me of Wizard of Legend with its combat and graphics when I initially saw the trailer, and it was a game called StormEdge. Like Wizard of Legend, there doesn't seem to be much of a story that I picked up on, but it does have a lot of elemental effects, or it's advertised to have a lot of elemental effects. I personally did not enjoy the demo that much. The demo teaches you the importance of dodging, and that's really the most important thing. All these enemies have shields that reduce damage, and to get rid of them, you need to get a perfect dodge or have them walk onto a trap. And then they get the shield back so shortly after you remove it, making it near impossible to kill anything. I got to a boss fight in the demo, but the amount of health they had and the amount of dodging needed, you barely got any attacks off. I'll say the core gameplay underneath the malarkey that is the shield is good. The combat is indeed similar to Wizard of Legend, and I think it can shine a little bit with some refining some enemies, as these plants were really annoying. I was definitely more disappointed with this demo because of the shields and the combat, but I'll keep my eye on it, as I do think it has a lot of potential. And if you are a big fan of Wizard of Legend and you're craving that type of game, it did feel like it at its core, but just beware of the shields. I'll keep my eye on it and hope it gets some refining. Next, we have a roguelite that I saw at the end of 2023 during a PC game and showcase, and it was a very unique looking roguelite, and the combat looked quite smooth, and it's a game called Cryptical Path. This is a dungeon crawling roguelite where you create your own path. The combat was a little bland for my liking, and the animations were subpar to me, but at its core, I'll say it has a lot of potential to be great. Inside your runs, you clear a room filled with enemies and then put what path you want to take next with the currency control. Each type of room costs control and can be an elite room, regular enemies, free health, or shops. The map spawns a handful of rooms for free that you can build to, and you can still place rooms if you have no control, but it makes the runs harder. The concept alone, I think, is good and can help build a strong game. Enemies are meh, combat is okay, but the potential is great. And outside of a run is simple of just buying items that can appear in future runs. Really, I've liked the way this game looks since the first day that I saw it, and I'm not gonna say I'm disappointed with my time in the demo, but I'm not really lost for words, you know what I mean? It was an okay time, and I think it has great potential. One to keep your eye on for sure if you're a roguelike fan. And next we have a genre I never really cover on this channel, and I decided to throw it into my demos played because I thought some people would probably like it, and it's more so a cozy and simulation type game, and it's a game called Minami Lane. It's super simple, where you bring life to a street and try to achieve certain goals in a mission revolving around that street. You build shops, restaurants, attractions like parks, and try to make all your little people happy. After each day, it'll tell you what the people like and what they don't like, and you can make changes as you need to. It's super simple, and I love the graphics and aesthetics of it. I'm actually glad I picked it up, as it's honestly good fun, and it's one of the games that actually has a release date, as it's releasing February 28th of 2024. If you're a fan of little cute, simple, cozy games like this, definitely give it a shot. I can see a lot of people enjoying this one. Next, we have one last Horde Survivor game that I ended up playing, and it's a game called Earl vs. the Mutants. And I was very hesitant to pick this one up, and I'll say it's okay. It's a top-down game where you drive around and run over mutants and shoot them. The mutants look like humans still, but we can get over that. You gain XP and can level up your usual abilities, weapons, and drones that you can pick up. Runs only last about 10 minutes in the demo, and the game was okay fun for a little bit. I'm not sure how much replayability this type of Horde Survivor has, as everything felt kind of basic, and really, the text as a whole from characters feels kind of cringe and unfunny. The game does have meta progression, though, after a run to upgrade everything, but you don't get a lot of currency to upgrade after a run. If you love Horde Survivors, you might like this one, but it was a little underwhelming. But the music was nice. Finally, we have one last game that I did end up playing during this little Steam Next Fest, one last demo, and I was a little hesitant to play it, as it's another genre that I don't really cover too much. but the game is Children of the Sun. First things first, this game was very unique with more than its visuals. Every level has a small number of enemies, and it's your job to kill them all with one bullet. Real-time tactics is the best way I could describe this, as after you kill an enemy, you can change the bullet's projection to go to another one. And the game even has more mechanics where you can practically refire the bullet and slowly move it around where you shot it. The demo had a good handful of levels and introduces the game well. I'm not sure how much I'd want to play in a single session, but I was engrossed in it with my time. It doesn't have much music that I recall, but I did enjoy what I played, and we'll probably end up buying this one. And really, that's every single demo that I got to play during this Steam Next Fest. I know I missed a good handful, tons of games that I missed, but there's only so much time in a day for me to play these demos. But the games I did play, I felt like I picked a good bunch of games to showcase, and really, a lot of them were a lot of fun, and a lot of them have great potential. If I had to pick a favorite game from these lists, I would probably say Pepper Grinder or Custodian Crypt. Both of those games were absolutely fantastic, and I am so excited to see when they actually release. All the developers working on these games, they're doing a great job, but those two games, Pepper Grinder and Custodian Crypt, those are the games I would highly suggest you check out. And really, that's all for talking about demos. Extra special shout out to the people that support me on Patreon still. Thank you for that extra support over there. It really does mean a lot in helping making these videos. And yeah, that's all. I'll see you next time.